Yeah. As I got another rhyme, another rhythm for y'all to listen. I'm never quitting on my mission. I'ma roll with what I'm giving. Got some ambition, this new edition, filling positions. Looking at the void in myself and feeling what's missing. Better watch the way you going, better go in the right direction. In the moment you stressing, but you gon' be counting blessings. And I know that for certain. Keep on working, open curtains. Haters swerving, cause they ain't ready for your final version. Whoa. I'm never gonna give up. Fall down, I just gotta get up, yeah.
You're listening to the Tom Ficklin Show on WNHH-LP 103.5 FM, your home for community radio.
Good day, everybody. This is the Tom Ficklin Radio Show, and today is really a fascinating and intriguing opportunity for us to tell our story. You don't have to wait for Black History Month or Afrocentric Month or any other month for people to really understand that our journey, our careers, our commitment to what I want to call life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for women, children, and men is something that can't be neglected. And we're really honored and pleased today to have Dr. Britnee Williams with us, Reverend Dr. Leroy Perry, and Reverend Elvin Clayton to kind of share and commune about what our passion and purpose is. And we're going to really focus on Dr. Williams has been kind enough to join us, and she's a cardiothoracic surgeon. I'll repeat that: a cardiothoracic surgeon. You may say, "What is that? What does that mean?" And we're going to get into that and have some discussion. But really, she deals with the lungs, one of our most, if not our most vital organ. And so many different diseases and injuries can occur to the lungs. So she's a cardiothoracic surgeon. What she does in general for layperson speak is she diagnoses and offers promising treatment to ailments of the heart, lungs, esophagus, and other parts of the chest. If you're watching on Zoom or on YouTube and not just the audio, you will see Dr. Williams has been kind enough to, she has her scrubs on. This is not a Vogue dress, but she literally has just come from healing someone, from working with someone, from sharing the love and using her expertise as a cardiothoracic surgery, a fellow at Emory University in the Atlanta area. She's chosen to focus her medical career on really addressing this deadliest cancer. You hear so much about breast cancer, legitimately breast cancer, prostate, et cetera, but I was just unaware of how that cancer, Dr. Williams, lung cancer is the most deadliest. I mean, that was that's just shocking me, but it's something, all the more reason why this show is so important to bring attention to really the vital work that cardiothoracic surgeons such as Dr. Williams do, not just occasionally, but 24/7, 365. Not that you're in the surgery operating room that constantly, but in terms of a career, you're thinking, you're meeting with patients, you're diagnosing patients, you're talking to family. So really salute you. Let's just kind of jump in, and Dr. Williams, kind of tell us a little bit about about yourself and why you're able to even take the time to kind of share with us your expertise.
Sure, then thank you so much for having me. So just to give a little background, I am currently a cardiothoracic surgery fellow, as mentioned, at Emory. I just recently finished my general surgery training at University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, where I'm board certified in general surgery, so anything in the abdomen, like gallbladder, bowel, liver, etc. But I did want to pursue further subspecialized surgical training. One, because lung cancer and esophageal cancer do run rampant in our communities and are often kind of forgotten by other equally as deadly but more funded cancers out there. And then also it's one of the cancers that we can cure surgically if caught early enough. So there's nothing more satisfying than diagnosing someone with stage 1 lung cancer, operating on them, and they're cured without needing any further chemotherapy or radiation. So it's something I really enjoy. And I hope to, also be able to leave fellowship trained in heart surgery as well, which is what I'm currently doing. But my focus is more on oncology.
Fascinating. And Reverend Clayton, kind of share the telling our story motif, the purpose, why we decided to kind of, kind of craft and frame this particular show around the theme of telling our story. And as Dr. Williams has already teased us with us really being able to kind of deal with some really insightful and informative issues. But why have we decided that this objective of telling our story series? What's that all about?
Thank you so much, Tom. Really, it was the brainchild of my colleague, but we felt it would be a colossal event to have people of color tell their story.
Mm-hmm.
By doing so, it would show our listening audience that the storyteller didn't become an instant success, but there may have been some struggles in their life during their childhood, during high school and college.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe some struggles because of their race and their gender. But our hope is that by hearing their story, it will give hope and determination to other people of color and people in general.
Excellent, excellent. So, Dr. Williams, I saw you shaking your head, so I'm not sure whether you went back to when you were 5 years old or 10 years old or 15 years old, but I'm sure some memories kind of surfaced as Reverend Clayton was kind of throwing the mic your way. So maybe weigh in about, if you want to share about perhaps your family or why you referenced your career in the past and your career objectives moving forward, but maybe weave in some of the work that you do as well. And what does your typical week look like when you're not kind of keeping us out of the clubs or bars on Friday afternoon? I'm sorry, but the happy hour.
Yeah. So yeah, I was nodding my head. I'm just because I do think it's great to have shows and exposure like this because, there's so few. I mean, in terms of CT surgeons, there's only about 3% are Black in the United States, and so. In medical school, honestly, this career never even crossed my mind just because it just wasn't something, we did. And then even before medical school and undergrad, I was told by my career counselor that there's no way I would even get into medical school. And so I think it's, great. And it's one of the reasons I want to work in an academic institution just to show, younger especially Black women as well, that there are people that, come from different backgrounds and can still kind of do what they hope to do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then in terms of my kind of day to day, it's, fellowship has been pretty busy. It's a lot to learn in a 3-year program. And so typically, especially now on cardiac surgery, I'm typically in the hospital by about 4:45 in the morning. This week, this is the earliest I've gotten home this week. Actually, I typically get home around 8 or 9, and I'm in the operating room most of the day. The cases are pretty long. Like I did a heart transplant this week that took about 9 hours or so. And so it's, it's rigorous work, but really fulfilling. And, I think, and then thoracic, when I'm working more on lung cancer, the operations are typically shorter, but I'm in the hospital probably around from 6 a.m. to maybe 7 p.m. every day, every other weekend off.
Reverend Perry, I see those cobwebs that you dusted off for today's show. So kind of weigh in if you would.
I was really, I have so many questions. I don't know where to start.
Just go start at number 1, number 2.
I'm truly fascinated just having you on the show, and I think that is just a feather in the cap of all of us who want to see better health outcomes and better participation of minorities in the healthcare field. When you talked about surgery, one thing that went through my mind, because we've been talking to surgeons for the last 9 years, and with Black men, for example, in prostate surgery, we saw how, and even in breast cancer, we saw how it went from like radical surgery to a more precision kind of surgery, even to the point of robotic. And with the Tulsa study, I have no idea what they do, because you go in the same day and almost come out the same day. So, I mean, it just seems like medicine is just always evolving. And so what you do, I mean, for 9 hours in a
Is that something?
and so when you mentioned that transplant, one of the things that went through my mind was, in terms of availability and equity, how many Black people will get that opportunity to get a transplant?
Yeah, that is a great point. I mean, the goal of UNOS and the National Transplant Network is to make it equitable and to use kind of objective data on deciding who gets which organs. But I mean, even before you get on the transplant list, it's harder. You know, Black people aren't going into the doctor as much. By the time they've seen someone, they may not be a candidate anymore, or by the time they get in there too sick, they have poor outcomes. And then you need a lot of support system. You need a huge team of people to really get you through. So even if you get the organ, I mean, the real important thing is the outcomes and the organ function and survival. And so there's definitely a lot of disparities among African Americans and transplant. I think some organs, you know, kidney transplants are probably a little bit better than others, but you know, heart and lung transplants, you know, it's really rare. I mean, it's hard to find good organs, and so it's really important to raise awareness that if people kind of stay on top of it, you have to see, you know, your transplant team every so often, keep up with, you know, a ton of labs. It's, you know, it's a big undertaking, and so I definitely agree with that.
And the wait time for to get on, being on the list, how long is the wait time
Yeah.
for minorities? Like, is it 3
Yeah. I mean, it kind of depends. I mean, we have people that come in so sick that they're on the, you know, they're kind of escalated up within weeks. At least for, you know, heart and lung transplants, but it's hard. I mean, it's kind of a sweet spot where you can't be too healthy and then you sit on the list for years, but then once you're, you know, so sick, you kind of have a short window of time where you've got to get an organ or you may not survive.
And Dr. Williams, I want to ask you about your peer-reviewed journals and articles that you've submitted, because I don't think people understand, and Reverend Perry kind of indicated this about the evolving science, but you're not only in the operating room, but you're also contributing to the academic research. But before I go there, I just want to jump back very briefly. If we have a number of young people, high school students, college students that view this show and are looking for kind of guidance or inspiration, and I guess wondered in your when you were in high school or college, what, because you referenced the one counselor that kind of discouraged you. What can you think of one or two incidents that kind of told you that, you know, I'm going to climb this mountain regardless? Did someone smack you in the face? Did you decide I'm just going to do it yourself? I'm just curious of what, if you had any of those Damascus Road experiences.
Yeah, so you know, in high school and the beginning of college, I actually planned on becoming an artist. I started out as an art major at Howard University. And then, you know, I had always liked medicine and science. My mother's a physician assistant, and so I've spent a lot of time in hospitals growing up. But you know, it's hard because you always feel like, am I good enough? Am I smart enough? Is this really something I can do? And so that's when I started kind of speaking to the guidance counselor, started to investigate what it would take to apply to medical school. And, you know, all of them pretty much said it was too late. I started as an art major. There was no way I was going to get the credits to just not even try. And so luckily I'm kind of the type of person where if someone tells me I can't do something, that makes me want to do it even more.
Amen.
And so that kind of drove me to just kind of want to prove everyone wrong. And so fortunately I was able to do that. But you know, I think a lot of people would have just taken their advice and given up, but you know, you kind of have to just turn off the the naysayers and go for it. I mean, the worst thing, I've had friends of mine that have applied to medical school 3-4 times before getting in, and so it's just kind of perseverance. And I was fortunate to get in the first round, but it's hard when there are people that aren't supporting you.
And Reverend Clayton, I see your brain cells kind of talking to one another as well. I sense the questions on your mind as well.
Well, I was just listening to Britnee, and she was sharing with us the difficulty was for so many people to get in. Can you share with us some of the reasons why it's so difficult to get into medical school?
Yeah. You know, I think a lot of it is there's not a lot of spots is the first problem. And then the second problem is that it's all about test scores. And as you know, as we know that these standardized tests are often stacked against minorities. And then you have to have, you know, I worked at the Apple store for several years, and I had to save money to even pay for a course to study for the MCAT. And so it's, you know, I mean, I'm sure it's possible to do without paying for courses and doing practice tests, but it's extremely difficult. So I think, you know, especially nowadays, I look at the medical students now, and I don't know if I would even get in now because they're having to do so much. You know, they volunteer. You know, we have these like Nobel Peace Prize winners applying now, so it's like it gets harder every year. And you know, I don't know what's going to happen because people have just so much pressure on them. I even had actually a high school student email to shadow at the hospital. I'm like, these kids are starting really early, which is great. But then the people like me who kind of decided junior year of college to do this, you're already behind the 8 ball.
Well, Dr. Williams, we've just met through visa, and we really haven't met, but I'm going to go on the record and say that, and I'm not sure if Reverend Perry and Reverend Clayton agree with me, but you strike me as being an unreasonably modest person. Unreasonably modest person. So let me talk to us about peer-reviewed journal articles.
Yeah.
This is something, again, I want to give you a chance to wave your flag a little bit more. I'll be your PR person for this show.
Thank you.
Please.
So in academic medicine, one of the goals, so that usually the 3 pillars are, you know, clinical care, research, and education. And so most encourage you to do 2 of the 3. So I've kind of really focused in on doing research. And so I actually took 2 years out of my surgical training to do dedicated research time. At which point I wrote probably about 20 different manuscripts on different research topics. I went to UNC and took a 2-year master's program in 1 year to learn statistics to be able to run my own data, and was able to really contribute to, you know, the existing literature on disparities, a lot of global surgery work, and then also just looking at kind of outcomes and how we can improve healthcare overall. And so with peer-reviewed journal articles, you spend all this time writing the manuscript, collecting data, following patients, and then you have to submit to different journals, and they have kind of a group of people on their editorial board that review and either accept or reject your papers. And so I've been really proud of, you know, my body of work and being able to be that productive and have my work published. And so, and especially in reputable journals where that's kind of where the medical community looks for, you know, the up-to-date guidelines and what's going on today.
Reverend Perry, say something, because again, we just saw that modest approach. If you and I had said that, it would have been a little different in terms of beating ourselves on the back. But so I guess I'm just in your awe at the moment. Reverend Perry, what kind of comes to your mind at the moment as you heard her just?
What comes to my mind is my daughter is now working on her doctorate, and one of the difficult hurdles is that course called statistics.
Yeah.
I have a math teacher in my church who even said to me, statistic is a difficult subject. So when you said you were doing that, I'm racing in my mind and saying, how is she doing that? I mean, most people run from statistics, not run to it. Particularly Black people, because I don't think that we are given the same passion for math that we should be given in early grades. And so later grades, it's something that, we're more into the arts and stuff, but it is so essential, that the math part. And I like the other part that you talked about, and you talked about the global. Because I was on a call, a ground rounds with one of our heart doctors, and they were speaking with a medical director in Jamaica, and they were saying that they don't have the same kinds of techniques or modern equipment.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes they don't even have, like the people who they can reach out to within their own group. And so they had formed this partnership, which is like a global partnership, where 3 or 4 United States hospitals will join with a Jamaican hospital or an African hospital, and they will pass information, between each other in order to bring about best results. See, that is global. That is worldwide. That is something where that touches my heart, because I know when we talk about underserved and underprivileged in this country, can you imagine what it's like in another country?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, global surgery is really a huge passion of mine. Part of the 2 years I took off during my training, I was funded by the NIH to spend a year in Malawi in Africa to do some research on esophageal cancer. Unfortunately, I was there for 2 weeks, and then COVID kind of sent me back to America. But even before that, I spent some time in medical school in Ethiopia, and just like being in their operating rooms where they may have a day without running water, and you can't run an operating room without water. Or the way here we're so focused on sterility and all of that. In their operating rooms, the windows are open because it's so hot otherwise. And so my job as a medical student was to swat birds away from getting into people's body cavities. So it's just so interesting, when we're definitely have underserved parts of America, but when you go to Ethiopia and Malawi and operate with them, and they're working with so much less, it's just really flooring.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Again, Dr. Williams, another modest response. Let me push you a little further. I'm trying to give you a compliment here, but let me push you a little further. There's a recent article that one out of 7 people will live in be in the African continent in a few years. So this is where really our much of the world will be living. So I just wonder if you want to kind of comment a little bit about that, because you're relatively younger than Reverend Clayton, Reverend Perry, and myself. But 20, 30, 40 years from now, who knows where things might be in terms of global, just worldwide health, just health for, and we know about communicable diseases. And so I just wonder if you wanted to kind of look into your crystal ball a little second and chat about health for the world and for the planet moving forward.
Yeah. I'm kind of focused in the surgical world. So in terms of that, I think there's so much work to be done, but I think that the future is promising. There used to be what I guess people call now medical tourism, where groups of surgeons would go over to Africa for a couple of weeks, do a bunch of operations and leave, and everyone felt good about themselves. And then, we know now that those patients did poorly. They didn't teach anyone how to take care of them. And then, so they would have, wound complications, infections. And so that's fallen out of favor. And what my focus has been is less of flying in, doing a few surgeries and leaving, but more of building capacity for them to be able to take care of those patients themselves. And so one of the reasons I loved being at UNC was they have a partnership with the hospital in Malawi, and they actually started a training program so that they would train Malawian surgeons. And we've had this exchange kind of program where one of us every year would spend a year there and kind of work with them. And we work remotely with them. And, there's a lot of opportunities, especially in the cancer world we have kind of multidisciplinary meetings here that are often already held on Zoom. And so someone in in Africa with a question about a certain tumor or treatment options can kind of participate in that. And then my dream, which is probably pretty far off, is, as you mentioned, with robotic surgery. That's one of my future specialties. I'm hoping that that'll provide some opportunities to kind of help with remote surgical care.
Tremendous. We have about 20, 25 minutes, gents and ladies. So let's go, as the spirit moves us, whatever kind of comes across your mind. Reverend Clayton, have any thoughts in this regard?
I want to just go back a little bit. I go back to the conversation about statistics. Dr. Williams, I was invited to your high school. And you know that my daughter went there as well.
Yes.
But what I was most impressed with, I went to a math class and I went to a music theory class. I think there were about 6 girls in the math class. This calculus problem on the board, and one girl would go to the board. And wherever if she had a problem, the other girls would kind of help her get through it. So that next time, you know, she wouldn't have that problem. And then I went to the music theory, and it was only 2 girls in that class.
Oh, wow.
and they broke down a chord that I know guys who've been playing music all their life, they couldn't break the chord down like that. So do you think that going to a high school like that helped prepare you for this work?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And so, you know, I will always be happy that I went to Westover for high school, because they had a phenomenal program called Women in Science and Engineering, the WISE program. And I think it was actually just starting when I was there. But it was great exposure to, you know, we did computer programming, calculus, and I love that kind of environment where everyone was kind of helping each other through it, and thinking different ways about how to solve a problem. And then you could go from that class to, you know, music theory, art history, things like that, and just kind of, your mind was really getting trained to be able to bounce from, you know, different worlds. And so I think that's helped me a lot now, because oftentimes, especially in surgery, you're kind of a surgeon first, or you're a researcher, or you're, you know, a teacher, but you have to be kind of fluid and be able to think with both sides of your mind. And I have students now that will be doing papers with me, and they also do medical illustration, which is one of my my kind of hobbies. And so you can not only write a research paper, but provide the illustrations for it. And so I think going to that kind of school really helped kind of train both the left and the right side of my brain, as they would say.
Reverend Perry?
Yeah, I think that one of the curious things that tickles my thinking is that it wasn't simply the fact that they said you couldn't. I keep thinking that there was something else that said you could. You know, it's like in most fields, there is, we believe, some kind of call or something that pushes us or motivates us to move in a particular direction. Because coming from a high school like that, you could have went in 5 different or 10 different directions. And being at Howard, you could have other different
Oh, you're scoring points now, Doctor. Scoring points now.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. And especially in medicine, there's just so every step of the way, there's somebody telling you can't do it. And I don't know if that's specific to medicine, since that's all I've kind of known, but it's just really disheartening at times, because even once you're in medical school, once I became interested in surgery, you know, everyone's like, oh, I mean, are you sure you want to do surgery? It's a really hard life, you know. the hours are long. How are you going to have a family? Or, you know, how are you going to get married and things like that? And, you know, it's just really every step of the way. And then once I matched into a surgical program, initially I'd actually wanted to do pediatric surgery, and
Mm,
it's one of the hardest surgical specialties to get into.
mm,
And so every time someone would say, you know, you have to have really good scores, you know, it's the hardest one to get into. And it's just, I don't know what it is about it, but you kind of really have to have that kind of personality where that actually like fuels you.
mm. And Dr. Williams, if I can just drill down a little bit on terms of when Reverend Perry was asking you to kind of share about the influences, have there been any particular individuals or church institutions or home institutions that you think have enabled you to kind of light that fire or keep your optimism burning? Again, the theme of
Yeah.
today's show is kind of telling our story, and we really want to give you complete amplitude in terms of telling your story.
Yeah. You know, honestly, I think it is almost genetic for me. My dad is very similar in that way.
Mm,
He also went to Howard for undergrad and decided to
mhm,
go to law school. And everyone said, "Oh, you're not going to get into law school." And so he said, "Okay, well, I'm going to go to Harvard Law School." And everyone said, "You're definitely not going to get into Harvard Law School." And so, of course, he went to Harvard Law School. He didn't
mm,
actually, I don't think he even really wanted to be a lawyer, but because people said he couldn't do it, he went to law school, he went to Harvard, he practiced for a few years and then stopped practicing and did what he wanted to do. But he's just the type of person that because someone said he couldn't do it, he
mhm,
went through the like 5 years of his life just to prove everyone wrong.
mm, mm, mm.
Um, as a statistician, as a part of a statistician in your work, what do you see as um, the inequities in terms of numbers of mortality rates for Blacks with
Mm,
regards to lung cancer and some of these diseases now that are caught early
Mm,
and have positive results, but
mhm.
because of lack of access or care,
mm.
we are still, where are we on that scale, basically?
Yeah. You know, I actually recently did a roundtable discussion for a CT program on disparities in lung cancer. And it's interesting because it seems like one of the big places where we fall through the cracks is in screening.
Mm,
Um, I don't even know how much of our community is aware that there's now these new screening guidelines where if you're over 50 and have and are a smoker or have quit in the last 15 years, that you are eligible and through, you know, Medicare, Medicaid to get a CT scan every year to
mm,
screen for lung cancer until you're 80. Um, and I think it's common across all screening, cancer screenings, but especially in lung cancer. I don't know if it's just a lack of awareness or a lack of access. People probably think it costs money. It really should be covered now that it's officially a guideline. Um, but I think screening is a big issue where we fall into the cracks. And then also with clinical trials, I think Black people have been historically and rightfully so um, distrustful of the medical field. And so it's really hard to recruit African Americans to studies. And so there are all these new immunotherapies and chemotherapies that they're in active clinical trials and they're showing to be effective, but
mm,
we don't actually know what it's going to do in Black people because there's just so few numbers that are enrolling. And on one hand, I understand it. I mean, I don't want to feel like a guinea pig, but at the other end of it, you know, genetically we have some differences. And so it's useful to know, are these medications going to work differently in our population, or do we need a dose reduction or a dose increase or,
mm,
um,
mm,
so I think clinical trials and screening are really the two big areas where we kind of fall through the cracks with lung cancer.
mm. Uh, 10 to 15 more minutes, gentlemen and ladies. So let's kind of plunge in. Dr. Williams, talk to me about cigarettes. As you know, several states have banned the sale of menthol cigarettes in over 100 municipalities. But now I'm reading that even the cigarette industry is thinking of different ways of putting different things into the cigarettes that will still give the effect, the addictive effect of menthol. Just if you could wave your queen, your queen wand, would we abolish the sale of cigarettes totally?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, cigarettes, as you know, lung cancer is the highest mortality in our country for cancer, and it's 90% of it is cigarettes. And so it's just, it's such a preventable disease that kills so many people, and it's all cigarettes. And now there are studies coming out that vaping is having similar effects, which has kind of become the new thing. And so, I mean, I love what they do in California with certain, like just raising the taxes on all that kind of thing that's, bad for people's health. But I think if we could just ban all that altogether, it would be phenomenal. I mean, it's just we see so many people that even after they're diagnosed with cancer, they just cannot quit.
And
that is true.
I see Reverend Perry. I think Reverend Perry's taking notes to add to your next peer review journal. So I think he's volunteering to be an assistant. But
I wanted to simply say what you say. I'm taking notes because I think the clinical trials and the screenings are really the foundation of where we are. The problem also that you would add to that is the access and the information stream that would allow a person who has been a smoker to know that, yeah, you can get a free screening.
Yeah.
And doing this could add years to your life. Somehow that door is shut to us. It's shut because of education. It's shut because of privilege or non-privilege. It's shut because, there's nobody there who's trying to give us that to bring that information to us. I mean, so, we do hip hop, we do radio, we do jazz, we do Beyonce, we do all of that. But, Reverend Clayton was mentioning today that now we're having some people like Anthony Anderson on talking about, diabetes and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar on. And so we're getting the message out, but we're slow to do it. But I think that would be the third part of that equation that might lead us to some real positive outcomes.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think it's also a problem in our primary care access as well, because, the primary care physician is really the gatekeeper of all this. And if they're not aware of new guidelines and their patient population, they think, oh, well, they're not going to get this screening study or this and that, or I'm just going to try and get them their colonoscopy, and that's about all they're going to do. Which, I mean, it's sad, but I know even in my own family, I have older family members that I can't even get a colonoscopy, and so to think about getting a CT scan every year is just daunting. And so I get it, they have big patient loads and a lot to cover, but I think really getting the word out there is huge.
And we've had people who had sickle cell who would go to the hospital complaining of pain and be told that, oh, you're a drug addict, so we're not going to give it to you. But a white person could go in with the same spiel and they say, yeah, we'll help you. Because, again, that whole implied bias is there in medicine. And that's why we're so glad we have people who look like you and think like you, who can help change this whole scenario, So I applaud you. I'm so glad to see you.
Indeed. Reverend Clayton, I want to give you, as we weigh in, let's take another 8 or 9 minutes.
Well, there's a question that I want Dr. Williams to chime in on. How would you suggest engaging the African American community in conversation about health?
Yeah, I mean, I think things like like radio shows like this, churches, really anywhere that, I mean, even if we can get it into celebrities like you mentioned, Anthony Anderson. I think it's really just social media and whatever we are accessing frequently, the more we can get the word out, the better. It's just hard because I think seeing, certain people when they give that message, I think it's going to be taken a different way than if there's someone that looks like them saying, hey, like, we need to go get these CT scans. So I think, getting someone who looks like us and can be the face and encourage the community wherever we are, even if we're in, barbershops, like getting the word out there. I mean, it's just, I think any little bit helps. Any one person that I convince to go get lung cancer screening, I feel like an accomplishment.
I think the other part of that is training for doctors and young doctors going into medicine. So important. Like, I've been reading these books on medicine, Blacks in medicine, physicians in medicine, apartheid, and one of the things that seems to be prevalent in this field of privilege, and that is the idea that we are immune, that our bodies
absolutely.
that we're stronger, so you don't have to give us any pain medication, or you just go in and spend 8 minutes and you're done, because you're a super Black person, and you're not entitled to the kind of precision medicine that we're doing. So I think that, in training going forward in our medical schools and practices, equity, inclusion, and all of that, but that sensitivity. And one more thing I just want to say to you. When I was growing up, they told me, I used to date a girl who was going to Einstein School of Medicine. That was a preacher. And one of the things that she had mentioned to me, she said, I want to be a surgeon, but surgeons are considered to be cold, have no bedside manner. She said, so I really want to go that way, but I know a couple of the brothers here, and they're so strict and stern, and they don't have a life. I don't think I want to be that. So she ended up being a psychiatrist. In fact, she worked with Malcolm X's grandson after he burned. Yeah.
Wow. And that's very true. Even today, I mean, it's still considered kind of a field for, I'll say stuffy white men. But, I think until we just start infiltrating, it's going to stay that way.
Yeah.
And I mean, even as a Black woman, I'm so lucky to have some phenomenal mentors that are other Black women in surgery. But even them, I mean, they work so hard to get their foot in the door. So when they see someone like me who, for example, I wear my hospital shoes are hot pink. And so even the Black women mentors of mine are like, you really shouldn't be wearing those shoes. And I get what they're saying. They're like, we need to like blend in. We don't want to cause too much of a fuss. And I'm like, but it's going to stay that way until somebody changes it. And so for a while, I kind of took their advice, and I was just like, let me just be as bland as possible. But, I think this is, who I am, and they're going to take it or leave it.
And I'm going to rock with it. Huh?
Yeah. And everyone has appreciated it so far. So,
gentlemen, I want to give Dr. Williams the last word and give you gentlemen the chance the last word as well. But I just want to throw in one other question before we conclude, Dr. Williams. If you could speak to some of the young ladies that listen to this show about managing their career or starting a family or sustaining a partnership. Those challenges seem to be it's more for the women in our society to have to deal with those issues than the men. I just wondered if you'd like to share some comments with some of the young folks, women in particular, that might be watching the show.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a common issue with women wanting to go into medicine, and then especially surgery in general. And I would say that it is a valid concern that the hours are long, but they're not always going to be like that. Once I'm completely finished with training, I can have more of a flexible schedule. I've been fortunate enough to recently be engaged, and so
Congratulations.
thank you. It's not impossible. You just have to find someone that is willing to deal with your crazy hours. But I think if it's something you want to do, you should just go for it. And I am always happy to talk to any young Black women, especially that are interested in medicine. So I'd be happy to give my contact information for anyone interested.
Please do. Please do.
Mhm.
You know, I think that one of the things I would like to see happen is women like yourself and others in the field, like Dr. Onyema's wife,
Mhm.
Grace, who deals with nephrology. She was on the show, and our young ambassadors, our young women were just thrilled. And maybe we can send you that show. But I think that one of the things that I would like to see in the future is persons such as yourself would adopt somebody, some young person who had the interest, so that they would have a mentor out. Because if you wait on the school to tell you, or if you wait on others to tell you, you know, we need people who can dream and who are willing to share their dream with others who may also have a dream, but just afraid. So it's almost like, you know, if you hear a great preacher and you say, I want to be a great preacher, you hear a great lawyer, you say, I want to be a great lawyer. But if we don't have that contact, and in our community, you know, we highlight the negatives and never the positives. So we got to learn to accentuate the positives, and hopefully we can change the face of medicine. And so,
Reverend Clayton, I want to take 30 seconds, and then Dr. Williams, I want you to conclude and share any parting thoughts.
I want to take this time to thank Dr. Williams for coming on and sharing with us this evening. Being in surgery all day and still felt it not robbery to share with us. We are so grateful. And I'm going to boast when the family gets together how well she represented. And we're just grateful. Thank you so much. Much love to you.
Thank you so much.
Dr. Williams, you have the last word, and include, if you would, whatever contact information you're comfortable in sharing with people.
Yes, definitely. So, yeah, thank you again for having me on the show. I love any opportunity to promote more Black people, Black women in medicine and surgery. And so, if you have that inkling that you might be interested, I'm happy to speak with anyone. My email address is Britney, BRITTNEY .williams@me.com.
Excellent. Maybe just repeat that just one more time.
It's Britney, BRITTNEY .williams@me.com.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Because I mean, you, Dr. Williams, you extended that right hand of fellowship, so you've reached out. People can now reach back to you. Thank you for that.
I think you missed your calling, Tom.
Reverend Clayton is about to take up an offering for you.
There you go. My Cash App is okay. At any rate, everybody, take care. Be well.
As I got another rhyme, another rhythm for y'all to listen. I'm never quitting on my mission. I'ma roll with what I'm giving. Got some ambition, this new edition, filling positions. Looking at the void in myself and feeling what's missing. Better watch the way you going. Better go in the right direction. In the moment you stressing, but you gon' be counting blessings. And I know that for certain. Keep on working, open curtains. Haters swerving, cause they ain't ready for your final version. Whoa. I'm never gonna give up. Fall down, I just gotta get up, yeah.
You're listening to the Tom Ficklin Show on WNHH LP 103.5 FM, your home for community radio.